you just said, but for all the fantastic work you do in Parliament, holding the government to account, holding any MP to account that needs to be held to account, and having the persistence and the energy to keep on doing it day after day. And it's an absolute pleasure to work with you. And Iqbal explained how we work together as an independent group. When we were first elected as independents in July 24, I was obviously the only one who was an MP at the time. We all met in my office, we sat round the table and we poured the tea and agreed that we would work together, agreed that we'd work together for social justice and political justice, agreed we'd work together for the people of Palestine and hold the government to account on arms sales and everything else. And we've been doing that consistently ever since. And we correspond with each other almost by the hour, and we take decisions on 99% of the time on collective voting on particular issues in Parliament and amendments, and obviously have great respect for each other's constituencies and for the work and knowledge they have. And Iqbal is an absolutely essential, central part of that. Iqbal, thank you very much for all that you do and the work that you put in. Because Parliament is a pretty harsh, unforgiving place, and make a mistake, nobody ever forgets it. Do something right, everybody forgets it the next day. You know how it goes. Always remember the worst, never the best. And so we work together as a group, and I've no idea what's going to happen over the next year, 2 years. I've no idea what the Prime Minister will be doing this time next year or the year after. I don't suppose he has either. But you never know. The Independent Alliance might become much bigger as time goes on, and I sincerely hope it does. Because I cannot believe that all those people like me, and like I'm sure many in this audience who spent their lives in the Labour Party, can be in the least bit happy about the current situation and the way in which the country is being led and the direction in which it's been taken. I'll say a bit more about that in a moment. Can I welcome you all here, say a huge congratulations and thank you to each of you as councillors and candidates, every single one of you, because it is an enormous honour to run as a council candidate. It's an enormous honour to be elected, and you will have your work cut out representing your community. Trying to give that voice to the people that have entrusted us with their vote, to deliver for them on decent housing conditions, to deliver for them on social care, to deliver for them on education, environment, and so much else. And it's very easy on a council as in Parliament to be sucked away from the reality of people's lives and those that put you there, and live on a different plane in a different place. And if you allow yourself to be sucked away, 4 years' time you face the electorate again and they say, where were you? What were you doing? Where were you when we needed a pedestrian crossing? Where were you when our school was threatened with closure? Where were you when there was pollution in a local stream or there was damage in a local park? I know that because of the way in which the independents are organised and work all over the country, it's different. Because we have local forums, we have local report back, we have local accountability. So we cannot get away from the communities that we are proud to represent. And so I'm delighted to be here to support all of the Kirklees independents. And I wish you all the very best and very good wishes for Thursday, and look forward to a massive number of independents being there on Kirklees Council, holding officers, and if you're the leadership, you'll be the leadership. If you're not, holding the leadership to account. But above all, you'll be a voice for the people, the community, and a different society. A different society. A society based on social justice, a society based on the rights of people, and a society based on a determination that every child in every school matters, that every life matters, that we don't walk by on the other side for the underachievers and the homeless, the mentally ill and all the others. We're there with them, because that's what we're about. That's the core of our being and the core of our values. I also want to just say a particular thank you to 3 people that are in the audience today. Paul Rogers and Claire. Paul is a great friend of mine, is Emeritus Professor of Peace Studies at Bradford University, gave me enormous help when I was Leader of the Opposition, and we're working very closely together on all issues of peace and justice around the world, and his phenomenal knowledge is always readily made available to us all. Paul, thank you for all that you do. And if it's any help to you, Paul and I will be performing at the Bradford Literary Festival in July. And I'd also like to say a huge thank you to my wife, Laura Alvarez, who's here, because the support and effort she puts in working with the Peace and Justice Project on international issues, and she's the International Secretary of it. Now, think about the issues that we're facing. Think about the issues we're facing as a country. And then think about what happened in the election 2 years ago, just nearly 2 years ago. Labour won what I would call a loveless landslide. On a lower vote than we achieved in 2019, when I readily concede we didn't win the election, but we still got a higher vote, and several million less than we achieved in 2017. On a manifesto of redistribution of power and wealth, on a manifesto of peace, on a manifesto that was voted the greenest manifesto ever put before the British people. Now that government, elected in July 24, could have done a lot of things. It could have said, austerity is over. It could have said, we're going to invest. We're going to invest in the social needs of people. We're going to invest in building lifetime tenancy council housing. It could have done a lot of things. Almost every single government department is facing either frozen or reduced spending, and we see the results of it. You see the results of it in the special needs shortages in every single one of our schools. We see it in the lack of housing, and we see it in the exploitation of many people living in the private rented sector. A simple thing that it could have done in July 24, apart from bringing me a glass of water, would be, that was a joke by the way, I'd love a glass of water if there is one, it was to have frozen the tenancies of people. Oh, thank you very much. You see, that's comrades in operation. It was to have said they would protect all tenancies from no-fault eviction. Instead, that no-fault eviction only came in 2 days ago. And during that time, thousands and thousands of private sector tenants lost their flats when they needn't have done. And I feel personally very angry about that, because a number of those are my constituents and others. That's the sort of thing they could and should have done. They didn't end the 2-child benefit cap. They only did that after a lot of us forced them to do it. And that was popular opinion that forced them to do it. They didn't want to do it. And then get this. And Liz Kendall gets up in Parliament and announces she wants to save £5 billion. £5 billion off the what she calls the welfare budget, but in reality it was from personal independence payments for people with profound needs and disabilities. She wanted to take it away from them. There was an uproar, so they said we'll be for the next round of applicants. Then there was another uproar, so they stopped that. And she said that it was going to happen anyway, and there is a review going on, led by Sir Stephen Timms MP, into how we're going to cut disability benefit. Just to help Sir Stephen Timms out, I'll be in Newham tomorrow evening, explaining to the people of Newham how he is not representing them, but Newham independents will be representing them in the future. And so they are after those benefits. Now, think about it. I'm sure plenty of you either in receipt of personal independence payments or know how difficult it is to get them. It's outrageous, the idea of taking it away. I held a meeting of people in my constituency who received that benefit. And they were in tears when they told me, without that benefit, they couldn't live on their own. They needed help, they couldn't go to the toilet, couldn't cook a meal, couldn't do anything. They said their whole quality of life would be destroyed. It's a kind of appalling treatment of people with disability that we have spent our lives trying to end, and this government is trying to cut that benefit. And now they're saying Labour MPs get it on the need for welfare reform. Well, I'll tell you what we're doing in your party. We're setting up a commission made up of people with disabilities to report on the level of poverty of those families with disability and make demands for changes in the system. This government wants to make them pay for their inadequacies. And there's so much else we could speak of. And I want to just draw this parallel. We were looking the other day at the capital spending programmes of this government going through to 2030. The only department that is going up year on year on year on year is defence. And by 2030, on capital spending, that is investment in weapons, in planes, and so on, all those things, we'll be spending 4 times as much on that as we are on housing, and 3 times as much as with that on education. What's happened to our priorities that we end up actually creating more stress, more poverty, and more difficulties in our society because of the priorities the government has got? Paul and I worked together on a book called The Monstrous Anger of the Guns, which is about the profits of the arms trade at the expense of social spending in our society. These are the kind of issues we've got to face up to. Now, you're running for council election. You're going to be councillors. I hope you're all going to be councillors. And you're going to have to fight very hard. You're going to have to fight very hard and be that voice for justice, that voice for people, that voice for good quality housing, and that voice to protect the important benefits like disability benefits that we've all worked hard for and achieved. 2 last things I want to say are this. One is that the 5 of us in the Independent Alliance group of MPs came together because we'd won the election. We'd all won the election in different constituencies, but with broadly the same kind of message about social justice. But the one thing we were absolutely agreed on, with no debate, division whatsoever, was support for the people of Palestine and the appalling situation that the British government has done. And Iqbal, Adnan, Ayub, and Shaukat and I have all been united on this, demanding answers week in, week out from the British government, week in, week out about the sale of arms, week in, week out about the overflowing of Gaza by the RAF and what happens to the information they collect, where it's fed to, which bombing targets the Israeli Defence Force then use because Britain has provided them with the information. And so through the Peace and Justice Project we set up the Gaza Tribunal. Iqbal came and observed some of it, and I was very grateful to him for that. He heard the 29 expert witness statements that were given. It was heartbreaking, listening to doctors crying because they didn't have anaesthetic. They didn't even have antiseptic to treat people's conditions and illnesses, but they wanted to help the people of Palestine. And we heard Palestinian voices, including a young man who said he had difficulty eating and consuming anymore because his stomach had been so damaged by the starvation he'd been through for the past year. All that sort of thing. All that sort of thing happened in plain sight of water, electricity, medicine, food, deliberate starvation of the Palestinian people. And so I went to the ICJ with the South Africans to make the case. I didn't make the case, I listened to the case being made for committing the idea that Israel had committed an act of genocide. And I simply say this to the British government: if you know full well an act of genocide is being committed in Gaza by Israeli planes, 15% of the parts of which are made in Britain, and bombs that are delivered via Britain through RAF Akrotiri, sorry, but that makes you complicit in these acts of genocide. So I wrote to the ICJ, I wrote to the ICC, International Criminal Court, International Court of Justice, and invited them to assist their inquiries by questioning Keir Starmer, David Lammy and Yvette Cooper about why they continued supplying arms to Israel while these crimes were going on. And we won't give up on that. We'll carry on as long as it takes. And the other wars, the wholly unnecessary and disgraceful bombing that's going on in Iran at the moment, the occupation of Lebanon by Israel, the war that's going on in Sudan, the war that's going on in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the war that's going on in Ukraine. At the end of the day, there has to be a solution to all these conflicts. It's not going to be achieved by the world's arms industry. It's going to be achieved by popular opinion around the world wanting peace. It's going to be achieved by diplomacy, by working together, dealing with the injustices that the Palestinian and so many other people suffer from. So we're in politics because we want to achieve that world of peace and that world of justice. And that is a voice that I'm sure you as councillors will do your best to make clear on and make sure that your local authority isn't investing in the Israeli Defence Force, possibly unwittingly in some cases, but you will make sure that you don't get involved in that. And I know we can rely on all of you as our public representatives to be that voice. You will be abused, you will be attacked, you will be condemned. Trust me, I'm used to that. But I'm still here, and where are they? And unfortunately, Peter Mandelson couldn't make it this evening. I'm really sorry about that. And I'm the only person that's happy to be in the Epstein files. Because my mention in the Epstein files is, how do we get rid of him? So, you know, I'm the only one that's not embarrassed. The last thing I'd say is this. This morning, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, gave opinions again about what's going on in this country. I hate the violence against individuals. I hate stabbing of anybody. I hate shooting of anybody. I hate violence that occurs in our streets. It has to be absolutely condemned in all circumstances. And we do that. Of course we do. I would also say this, that saying that a march for Palestine is somehow or other a threat to anyone's human rights is insulting and offensive. I have been on the most recent 36 national demonstrations for Palestine, and I'm sure I'll be on many more. And there are many people on those marches from all around here, all around the northwest, all over the country. They're all there. People of all faiths and none, and a significant number of very dedicated Jewish people on those marches as well, who also want justice and peace for the Palestinian people. And we're all on the march together because we all want the same thing, justice for the Palestinian people. And so we will do everything we can in Parliament to defend the right to protest, the right to march, the right to free speech, because those rights were won by brave people in the 17th, 18th and 19th century. They were won at Peterloo, they were won by the Chartists, they were won by the dock workers, they were won by the suffragettes, they were won by so many people over so many decades and centuries. That's how we end up with statutes that protect our rights of free speech. So the idea that the government should ban our right to march, ban our right to protest, ban our right to free speech, no way. We will stand up against that. You will all stand up against that. We will all stand up against that. Because if they take away our rights, then what do we have left? How do we act? How do we protest? So these elections next Thursday are important for lots of reasons. Lots and lots of reasons. Important because you're getting control, I hope, of local authorities, where you can start directing expenditure where it ought to go, to the needs of the people and the poorest, and improve the living standards of everybody you can within your community. But it's also to be a voice, and it's also to be a message to the main parties, all of whom adhere to an economic austerity agenda, that, sorry guys, that agenda is over. That agenda is gone. We're now into something different. We're into redistribution of wealth and power. We're into investment in people's needs, and we're into getting a government in Britain that on the world stage isn't a voice for war, isn't a voice for genocide, but a voice for peace and a voice for global equality and human rights and understanding. And that is how we will defeat reform. That is how we will show the racists of reform. Get me behind me, because we are marching forward. Thank you very much.